You are listening to Living with ADHD and CPTSD, available on Apple Podcasts and other platforms everywhere. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Today's episode is going to be about ADHD and anxiety. Now, symptoms of chronic anxiety. If you have difficulty managing the everyday demands of life, are chronically late, forgetful, have trouble meeting deadlines and obligations, become overwhelmed with finances, tune out in conversations, speak or act impulsively, lack tact in social situations, then certainly this can bring about feelings of chronic anxiety. You may worry about keeping track of it all. You may worry about what will go wrong next. When will the next letdown occur? What will I say next to embarrass myself or someone else? You may dread that next time when you are rushing to an important appointment that you surely will be late to again. ADHD and anxiety are closely related. Anxiety disorder is ADHD's most common comorbidity, in no small part because the ADHD experience makes for a life characterized by stress and worry. Adults with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder lead anxious lives. The nature of ADHD often makes day-to-day life stressful, creating situations and environments fraught with uncertainty, anxiety's primary fuel. That is why ADHD cannot be discussed without bringing up anxiety, whether that means pesky, troublesome bouts of worry that present only in a specific context, like meeting work deadlines or making difficult back-to-school decisions, or full-fledged anxiety disorder. Either way, the link between the two is direct. So much so that anxiety is the most common comorbid diagnosis with adult ADHD. Okay, so like you out there who have ADHD, and myself, of course, I deal with this a lot. I constantly have issues with anxiety, mostly because I worry about things like being on time. Will I have enough money left? Am I going to be able to make my girlfriend feel happy, loved? Am I doing enough at home? Am I taking care of myself? Am I spending too much money? Am I eating the right foods? Like, there's hundreds of possible and different situations that could make someone anxious. Now, when you have ADHD, anxiety is such a strong, obvious thing that you're experiencing that it seems like your entire day can be full of anxiety. And it's really, well, quite frankly, it sucks. I wish I could just stop. I really have this bad habit of thinking the worst every time some sort of a negative feeling comes across. And the anxiety that I feel with this is really horrible. And I don't really know how to deal with it, although they say that if you breathe slowly, take a couple of deep breaths, and you try not to think about it, you could help yourself to release some of this anxious feeling. But it's very difficult because, of course, as you know, with ADHD, our minds are always going 1,000 miles an hour, and it seems like it's nonstop. The best way that I can put it is ADHD in the mind feels like there's 300 televisions going on all at once, all at the same volume, and you have no control over the channels as to what you're watching, and you can't turn it off. It's really frustrating, and I know firsthand how difficult it can be, especially when it comes to focusing and trying to pay attention and remember things. And because of that, knowing that I do have these problems, I do feel a lot of anxiety. Is anxiety a symptom of ADHD? Although anxiety alone is not included within the diagnostics criterion for ADHD, the link between the two conditions is strong. Individuals with ADHD are more likely to have an anxiety disorder than are individuals without the condition, with rates approaching 50%. Anxiety refers to our mental and physiological response to perceived risk or threat. Anxiety disorders, which range from social anxiety disorder to panic attacks to post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and more, are characterized by constant feelings of worry and fear that interfere with daily life. You could also include CPTSD in there, although anxiety, when it comes to CPTSD, would be more of a part rather than like a symptom or a feeling that, like a condition that goes with ADHD. Some symptoms like fidgeting and trouble concentrating are hallmarks of both ADHD and anxiety. As a result, clinicians must rule out anxiety and other mental disorders when diagnosing ADHD and vice versa. Does ADHD make anxiety worse? Well, individuals diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety disorders tend to have more severe anxiety symptoms than do those without ADHD. But even adults with ADHD who do not meet the diagnostics criteria for ADHD, which may cause I messed that up. Excuse me, I'll start over. But even adults with ADHD who do not meet the diagnostic criteria for anxiety may experience occasional and situational anxiety in their daily lives, precisely because of ADHD, which may cause time blindness, poor working memory, and exaggerated emotions, among other anxiety-producing symptoms. In one study on adults with ADHD, researchers noted that problems stemming from ADHD, such as tardiness, procrastination, and the prospect of social stigma, all led participants to experience anxiety at many points in their lives. And once they were anxious, their ADHD symptoms worsened. Yeah, it's true. I have so many personal experiences with this. Being with my girlfriend and the lack of experience that I have when it comes to relationships and living with the member of the opposite sex, and also having to live in a house that you're not used to. I have other things that cause my anxiety, like renting out my condominium that I own to a family, and there's always a constant in the back of my mind, this worry that something's going to break and that I'm always going to have to spend more money to get it fixed, that it's going to put me into even worse debt. I have anxiety about my car. I have anxiety about my health. I have anxiety about relationship, issues that I'm going to break up one day due to all the problems that ADHD and CPTSD are creating. It's very stressful, and it can make your life feel extremely difficult to maintain, and it really does wear you out because it's so emotionally exaggerate, it just takes a lot out of you. I'm not exactly great with the words there. It does take a lot of energy out of you because your system is so on edge. Compared to somebody who is not constantly feeling anxiety when they're living their daily life, the amount of energy it takes to get through a day feeling the anxiousness and the stress that comes all the time because of your constant worrying, you are more likely to feel unhealthy, be sick, right? You're more likely to get sick on a regular basis. You're more likely to have certain things like other health related problems. I know that people who are constantly suffering from stress and anxiety can have health issues like ulcers. You can develop cardiovascular related issues because your blood pressure is always high, and your heartbeat is always going faster because you're constantly feeling that fear and that anxious kind of system and the feelings that come with it. So it's not fun by any means. And it's really can be a lot of hell, especially on a bad day. Like if you wake up and you're already feeling anxious, to be honest, no matter how hard you try, your day's already shot. So, other ADHD symptoms that exacerbate anxiety. Exacerbate. Okay, whatever. Anyways, there's a quote here. It says, consistent inconsistency. Inherent uncertainty about how an event or a task will play out is at the core of anxiety. Understanding consistent inconsistency, a common element of life with ADHD, is key to understanding the persistent anxiety of living with ADHD. Consistent inconsistency describes the distrust and uncertainty in yourself that builds up after years of experiencing ADHD symptoms such as inattention, overwhelming feelings, memory lapses, and more. Consistent inconsistency is knowing, for example, that a task needs to be accomplished, but doubting the ability to get it done. So, ADHD is a performance problem. Individuals with ADHD know what they need to do, but they have problems with implementation, attention that begets anxiety. This is a big part of what makes ADHD maddening, particularly in adulthood. Barriers to implementation include the following. Self-regulatory efficiency. I know I can do this, but I'm not sure if I can resist distraction or focus. Incautious optimism, otherwise known as distorted positive thoughts. I work best at the last minute. Front-end perfectionism. I have to be in the mood, have enough energy to do something. These unlikely standards are by far the most common distorted automatic thought within adults with ADHD. Emotional dysregulation. Well, I just talked about that last week. While it's not included in the DSM-5, which is of course who diagnoses you to determine if you have ADHD, emotional intensity is a central feature of ADHD. Part of managing anxiety is being able to change and control our emotional states so that we can readily engage in a task. Failing to manage discomfort effectively can lead to avoidance and procrastination, which exacerbated by anxiety. All right, everybody, I am going to take a break, especially for you guys that are suffering from ADHD. This gives you a chance to take a few minutes to refocus your mind and come back for the rest of this episode. All right, everybody, talk to you soon. All right, welcome back to Living with ADHD and CPTSD. I am going to continue with the episode. So now what I'm going to talk about is coping mechanisms for ADHD and anxiety today. There are quite a few, and these are really good. I would definitely recommend looking at them. I think this would be very helpful for you guys. I'm going to go over them, try to give you some examples so that you can use this and going forward in life after you've listened to this episode. Okay, for number 1, structure unstructured time. There's no way around it. Creating routine is a must, especially one that's highly visible. That could be an appointment planner, a calendar on the wall, or a digital planner kept open on a tablet. Think of planners as time machines that allow us to look hours, days, and weeks into the future, priming us for what we plan to do. Breaks must be worked into any schedule, including making room for. All right. So basically, you need to have a structure to your time, the way you live your life. I know that it's difficult because we're always thinking about stuff and we're always getting off track, getting distracted by daily life, things, small things, big things that can be going on around you. If you can minimize that distraction, it definitely is easier. But for the vast majority of us with ADHD, a routine is really important. I've had routines for basically many, many years after constantly failing to keep track of my things that I'm using, going to work, getting to work on time, remembering stuff while I'm leaving to go to work, it soon taught me that I definitely have to have a routine. So, always knowing where your keys are, always knowing where your wallet is, where your jacket is, where your glasses are, having a routine in the washroom, right? Like it could literally be having a note on the wall reminding you of the steps that you need to do while you're in the washroom before you go to bed. So it could be you get into the washroom, you see the note, and it says brush teeth, clean your face, take out contact lenses if you happen to wear them, or like there's a number of things that you could do in the washroom that are important. If it also comes to getting ready for work, then you could have things like brush your teeth, brush your hair, wash your face, put on any sort of, if for women, put on makeup, check to see if you have anything like deodorant, do the little things. And then you could have it continue on to making sure that you've got your wallet, that you've got your keys, that you've got your card, you've got your lunch, that you've packed your lunch. Make sure that you take your coat with you. Make sure you remember where everything is. If it's the wintertime, make sure you have your toque or hat, or your gloves, or the car, the brush for your car if in case it snowed that day. Be very hard on the idea of making sure that there is a routine, that you have an external reminder or a planner to help you with that. Really important. Okay, number 2, exercise and movement. Now, we understand that they underestimate the loss of stealth movement during the course of the traditional workday. You walk down hallways to the parking lot or train station. As basic as it sounds, the movement does help. This is especially true when cooped up and working from home. So movement can be its own form of meditation, allowing us to remove ourselves from work or home or rest. It's true. When you're working, you can't exactly, unless you're at a fancy job or you're the manager or you have time to do nothing, you don't get the chance to work or to exercise while you're working. And there's a lot of us out there who do have who do have jobs where you do sit at a desk for much of your day, so you're not really moving much. And there are now out there a lot of studies that are proving that if you are sitting for a long period of day, it can be very detrimental to your health. So you need to make sure you take breaks, get up and move around, go for a walk around if you're in an office building, you've got a square area that you can walk and get back to your desk. You could do that a few times, or you could get up and go and get a drink of water for the purpose and take the long way to your desk. That's very helpful. Okay, third is maintain healthy habits. So many individuals, ADHD or not, are experiencing chronic stress and general feelings of being overwhelmed with one particular stressor. Better exercise, sleep, and diet, like limiting physical anxiety triggers like caffeine and alcohol, are effective at reducing the overall stress. That's true. Being healthy and getting a lot of exercise, getting your sleep, having a good diet, and minimizing or not drinking any caffeine or cola, pop, or alcohol is really good at reducing stress, because as you're the caffeine could definitely make the ability to have anxiety or stress higher and more likely. 4, specify your tasks. Avoid vaguely defining activities and instead fill your calendar with task or time-based items. Reviewing a report for work can be a 15-page task, and checking emails can be a 5 emails or 5-minute activity. Clearly laying out tasks helps combat front-end perfectionism and becomes an easy way to engage in a task for which you are not in the mood. Discomfort fades soon after engagement. Very true. If you're just trying to go on the fly and you're not having any organization and you're not being very specific with your tasks, you're going to, before you know it, you're going to be either realizing at the last minute that you don't have enough time to complete this, so you're going to have one incomplete task and you're going to be late for the second one. And then that could be repeating. So you could end up having 10 tasks in a workday or at home, and you may only properly complete 4 of them. That's not very efficient, and that's not going to do well at work or at home, especially over a period of days. All right, 5, organize physical spaces. Yeah, this is a good one. Define where work, leisure, sleep, study, and other activities will be done around the home to help with behavioral priming and habit formation. Combat site pollution by resetting and preparing your spaces for the next day, which also helps with transitions. Yeah, just like a lot of us, we have a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment perhaps. Those who are married or have families obviously will have multiple rooms. You've got your kitchen, you've got your living room, you've got your laundry room, you have a utility room or for storage, you have a basement, so you've got multiple rooms. But for someone who's like single or maybe just starting a relationship and they've moved in with someone, you may have 1 or 2 bedrooms with a bathroom and a kitchen and a living room. So you've only got a few rooms. Keeping these as certain locations, like your room is where you sleep and only sleep. You do your work in the office or at the desk and only at your desk. You go to outside or to the gym to do your leisurely activities. And you do your eating in the kitchen or in the dining room. If you start mixing these up, it's going to increase the anxiety because of the fact that you have a hard time staying organized, which will increase the anxiety. Okay, stay on your ADHD medication and continue to attend psychotherapy sessions if applicable. Medications help reduce ADHD symptoms and improve coping and functioning. Helping adults with ADHD does feel more efficacious and overall less anxious. Same goes for psychotherapy, now widely available remotely. Well, with the COVID pandemic going on, a lot of us can't go into the office to do your therapy sessions, so there are now remote connections available. It's true. Medication it is a proven fact that it does help you. It helps you increase your focus. It can help you increase dopamine or increase the ability for your brain to take in dopamine. Okay, 7, lower the bar on expectations. This is a big one because we have a lot of unrealistic or incorrect expectations because of the lack of awareness and self-awareness in our system. So, we can't expect the same performance in this pandemic world as before. Well, true. That's a recipe for entrapment. Instead, we can reframe tasks into doable terms and take on a sufficiency mindset. Being good enough is better than expecting to be perfect. And this mentality alone can get you unstuck and to a less anxious state. Now's probably not the time to embark in radically new endeavors, but it can be for new opportunities, like attending to deferred projects around the house. Pretty big there. All right. And number 8, decatastrophize. Maintaining perspective and practicing gratitude is needed to get through all of this. All of your anxiety. It's very true. Even if loss in any way has touched the household, one way to modify thoughts is to disengage with the inflexible should mindset, as in things should only work out one way and are no good if they don't. We can also diffuse by accepting some negative thoughts for what they are, just thoughts. This is basically like for myself, having the worst scenario thinking every time something negative happens or the possibility of a negative experience occurring. I am a lot better at it lately. For example, this evening, just before I was doing a podcast recording, I was changing out my summer tires for my winter tires. Yes, up here where I live in Canada, We do get winters, and it is very safe and important to have winter tires as a second set for your vehicle, especially if you do a lot of driving like I do. I had three of the tires on, and I was just getting ready to take off the fourth one. And for some reason, the lock key for my lock, I have one per tire so that people don't steal my tires. I didn't quite have the key on 100% properly. And as you know, tires aren't exactly easy to get off. And while I was attempting to get it off, I accidentally broke a little piece inside the key. And there was a bit of panic, but I was able to maintain the level of anxiety and stress. And I kept saying to myself, this could be worse. This could be worse, and I wasn't allowing myself to get super anxious or super stressed out. And I knew what I could do. All I had to do was go onto my computer. I have an account with the location that has the keys, or the replacement keys for this lock. And I went in and I just ordered one. Well, today I ordered two because I want to have a backup just in case this sort of thing happens again and I'm not stuck. So it'll take 3 or 4 days or so for the new key to get in. And then when I've got some free time this weekend or next week, I'll just change out the tire later on. It's no big deal. You're not going to wreck your car because one of your tires is just a regular tire. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And I was able to maintain a good level of low anxiety to no anxiety. And the worst case scenario actually never occurred. And it was a good feeling. And I felt very proud of myself that I didn't panic and go crazy, because there have been situations in the past where I have done some pretty stupid things. This is a really good example. A different vehicle that I had probably 15 years ago or so. It was an old car, and I took my dog that I had in that time out for a walk in the city here. And I accidentally locked the keys in the car. This is before you couldn't, do that. Today, I can't lock my keys in my car. It won't let me lock them or lock the doors if the keys are inside. Thank God. Because I was bad at forgetting my keys in the car. Another ADHD good old problem here. So I remember going, oh no, I'm here in the middle of nowhere. I don't have my phone. I'm not sure, and I'm going, uh-oh. And I did the stupidest thing. I broke the window. I was so panicky and so going, oh my God, I'm never going to get home. I don't know what to do. And I broke the window. And I remember getting home and telling my father, and as you know, that's not a good thing that I did. And he got upset and said, you could have called me, or you could have just done blah, blah, blah. He gave me all sorts of things. And I felt really stupid because I allowed my good old worst case scenario, ADHD, anxiety symptoms to occur, and I did something really ridiculous and really stupid. And then it ended up costing a bunch of money to get the window replaced. So not only was it stupid and unnecessary, it was also expensive. It's something that I don't think I will ever live down, but I am way better today than I was back then. You really can't control what happens. You can definitely take medication to minimize or to make the ability to, deal with your symptoms and the anxiety that you get from ADHD, but you can't truly stop it. And the only good way to deal with it is to do the coping mechanisms. If you are able to practice and feel in a safe space all the time, and then you can also find ways of adapting in your life, like the way you do things, the way you talk, the way you act, your planning, your scheduling, like if you do things in a step by step and you manage it well and you use external reminders and scheduling and calendars and stuff, then you can use all of those tools and tips together to help minimize the ability or your brain's ability to think that it's feeling anxious. Now, there will be times in your life where no matter what you do, you really can't avoid it. And unfortunately, there's really nothing you can do except try to cope with it and try to use grounding skills and, adapt different techniques that you can use to calm yourself down immediately after the stress and the anxiety hits. Sometimes grounding is definitely a good tool, senses grounding, doing the 5 different senses, doing where you breathe for 4 seconds and you hold for 4 seconds and then breathe for 4 seconds again, like repeating that. Slow, deep breaths are very good. You can also try to do things like go for a long walk or try to do something that's fun. Like you can't always hide from it, but you can't let it always get to you and take over. So you need to find ways to adapt and to cope. And that is a big thing. And if you can do that, then you should be able to be better at reducing the anxiety in your system. But the best ways, to be honest, is to see therapists, do your work, practice, have external reminders, try working on emotional regulation, try doing tips, and I would definitely recommend listening to my last week's episode on emotional regulation if you haven't. That is very helpful. There are different ways that you can reduce and stop anxiety for the most part. Medication is definitely a good thing, but don't strictly rely on the medication to do the work for you. That's the key here. If you just rely on one thing, you're going to have a lot less chance of being successful at preventing or minimizing the anxiety attacks from your ADHD symptoms. That's the best thing I can say, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about before I wrap up this episode is I recently discovered a therapist, a psychologist in Chicago, Illinois, named Dr. Glenn Doyle. He is on Twitter. If you look him up, if you actually search Dr. Glenn Doyle, you can find him on Twitter. He also has a blog. It is called Use Your Damn Skills. You can search for it on Google. You can also go to Linktree and look up Dr. Glenn Doyle. It has all his different links to everything that he does. He's very intelligent and he's an amazing psychologist. I follow him on Twitter and I think he's got some great information, some tips. He does a lot of amazing quotes that really do make sense. He's very helpful and he's a super friendly person. I would definitely recommend looking him up on Twitter and online and follow him if you are on Twitter. He's really someone who can help you see things in a different way. Okay, so that's it for this episode. What I'm going to do next week is I'm looking at seeing if maybe I could get a guest to help me with an episode on ADHD next week, and we can go from there. I would like you to visit my website, www.livingwithadhdandcptsd.ca. You can contact me there. I am on Twitter. It is also Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Please go look me up and give me a shout and I will follow you and we can definitely have a chat. I would love to talk, especially about ADHD or anything really. I am on Facebook as well. Okay, everybody. Thanks for listening and have a good time and a good week. Bye.